Hey Reddit, I'm Alex, 29, and this Christmas was different. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't anything obvious. No big argument. No dramatic confrontation. But there was a shift. A small, subtle one that didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was the way my mom dodged my calls when I asked about the Christmas Eve plans. Maybe it was how my dad gave one-word answers when I tried to confirm the usual family dinner. Or maybe it was just the general vibe. Like I was missing something. Like I wasn't getting the full story. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was just being paranoid. But then, I found out the truth. And once I did, everything changed. Christmas had always been a big deal in my family. We weren't the kind of people who did small, cozy get-togethers. No, my parents went all out. Massive tree, catered dinner, fancy decorations, guests dressed like they were attending a gala. And every year, it was the same routine. Christmas Eve dinner at my parents' house. Then Christmas morning brunch. Then gifts, laughter, and the occasional family argument. It was tradition. So when December rolled around, I assumed this year would be no different. I asked my mom, "Hey, what time should I come over on Christmas Eve?" And she hesitated, just for a second. But I caught it. She never hesitated. "Oh," she said quickly, "it's going to be a bit different this year. A little more curated." I frowned. Curated? She gave a forced laugh. "Yeah, we're keeping it small. Just immediate family. Nothing personal, sweetie, just trying to keep things a little more intimate this year." That's when I felt it. That strange, uneasy feeling in my gut. Something wasn't right. But I just nodded. "Got it," I said. And I left it at that. For now. Because if there was one thing I knew for sure, I wasn't getting the whole story. A few days later, my cousin Mark called. "Hey man," he said, sounding casual. "You coming to Christmas Eve this year?" I blinked. "Oh no? Mom said they're keeping it small this year." Silence. Then he let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, all right. Yeah, I think she mentioned that." I narrowed my eyes. "Wait, you're going?" Mark coughed. "Oh yeah, but, it's just a small thing." I let that sit for a second. Then I asked, "Who else is coming?" Mark hesitated. Then he tried to change the subject. And that's when I knew. I was being lied to. At that moment, I had two options. I could let it go, pretend like I wasn't suspicious. Or I could find out the truth. And let's be honest, I was never the kind of guy to just let things go. So I started digging, asking questions, making calls. And what I uncovered was worse than I ever could have imagined. I wasn't going to sit around and pretend everything was normal. The way my cousin Mark stumbled over his words told me enough. There was more to this than my parents just wanting a small Christmas gathering. So I started asking around. Nothing obvious, nothing that would make its way back to my mom or dad just yet, but small questions here and there. I called my aunt, casually asked if she had talked to my parents about the Christmas plans. She hesitated for a second, then said, "Oh, well, I think they're keeping it a bit more exclusive this year." Exclusive? Since when did a family holiday require exclusivity? I kept going. Reached out to my other cousin, who had no filter and was usually the last person to be clued into any family drama. "Oh yeah," she said without thinking. "They're having a huge Christmas Eve dinner this year. Super fancy, like black tie and everything." Black tie. I almost laughed. A small, intimate Christmas Eve dinner, huh? Keeping it low-key? Just immediate family? That was complete bullsh asterisk T. They were throwing a massive event. And somehow, I wasn't invited. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. There had to be an explanation, right? Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe they genuinely thought I wouldn't be interested. But deep down, I already knew that wasn't it. I debated confronting them immediately, but instead, I waited. I wanted to hear it from them. I wanted to give them a chance to say it to my face. So, I did something I knew would force them to be honest. I showed up unannounced. I drove over to my parents' house a week before Christmas, acting like it was just a casual visit. My mom opened the door, her usual smile just a little too tight. "Oh, honey, what a surprise." "Hey, Mom," I said, stepping inside. "Figured I'd stop by, see how the Christmas prep is going." She hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Oh, well, it's going to be very simple this year, just keeping it relaxed." I nodded, pretending to go along with it. "Yeah, that's what I heard. Just immediate family, right?" Her lips pressed together. "Exactly." I looked around. The house was already decorated. More than usual. Christmas lights strung across the entire foyer, expensive floral arrangements on every table, the kind of stuff they only pulled out for big events. I turned to her. So, what's with all the decorations? She stiffened. Oh, well, we still want it to feel festive. Even though it's small, she laughed, but it was forced. Of course, I nodded slowly, then said, Mark mentioned it was a black tie event. Dead silence. Her face drained of color. She recovered quickly, too quickly. Oh, well, you know how Mark is. He exaggerates things. I crossed my arms. So, just to be clear, everyone's invited except me? Her mouth opened, then closed. Then she let out a tiny sigh. And that's when I knew. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't bad communication. They had purposely excluded me. And now, I want to know why. She folded her hands, choosing her words carefully. Alex, it's not about you. It's just that this year, we're inviting some very distinguished guests. I raised an eyebrow. Distinguished. She gave an apologetic smile. People with certain expectations. It's a different crowd this year. More, refined. I let those words sink in. Refined. A different crowd. People with expectations. And suddenly, everything clicked. I wasn't being excluded because of space or because they thought I wouldn't be interested. I was being excluded because I didn't fit into the image they wanted to present. My parents, who had always been a little obsessed with status and appearances, had decided that I, their own son, didn't belong at their perfect little Christmas party. I felt a sharp, bitter laugh bubbling up, but I swallowed it down. Instead, I just nodded. Got it. My mom looked relieved, like she thought I was going to just accept it and walk away. Oh, honey, I hope you understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. She hesitated. It's nothing personal. I smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. Sure, I said. Nothing personal. Then I turned and walked out. And at that moment, I made a decision. If I wasn't good enough for their Christmas dinner, then my money, my time, and my effort weren't good enough for them either. They wanted to act like I didn't exist? Fine. But they were about to find out exactly what that felt like. I walked out of my parents' house with my mind racing. I knew my family was obsessed with appearances, but this, excluding their own son from Christmas Eve because I didn't fit their image, that was a new low. The worst part was how casual my mom had been about it, like she truly believed I'd just accept it and move on. Like it was normal to prioritize some rich strangers over your own child. I sat in my car for a while, gripping the steering wheel, replaying the conversation in my head. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the family group chat. It was filled with Christmas plans, excited messages about the big night, discussions about the menu, the guest list, the decorations, all happening right under my nose. And nobody had thought to mention that I wasn't included. I stared at the screen for a long time, debating whether to say something. Part of me wanted to call them all out right there, but another part of me wanted to wait, to see how far they go. So instead of blowing up, I simply typed, "Hope everyone has a great time at the Christmas party. Wish I could have been invited." Then I put my phone on silent and drove home. It didn't take long for the messages to start rolling in. First from my cousin Mark. "Mark, dude, I thought you knew. I just assumed you were busy." "Yeah, right?" Then my aunt chimed in. Aunt Linda, "Oh, sweetheart, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Your parents must have meant to invite you." I let that one sit there unanswered. Then, finally, my mom messaged me directly. "Mom, Alex, we should talk." I smirked. Too late for that. I didn't answer. And that's when the real fallout began. The next day, my dad called. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the best of me. "Alex," he started, his tone already frustrated. "What's with the dramatic text?" I let out a laugh. Dramatic? I just stated a fact. I wasn't invited. He sighed. "Look, this is a very specific kind of gathering. It's not personal." "Not personal," I repeated. "Right. Just business, huh?" "Don't be childish," he snapped. "Your mother and I worked hard to make connections with these people. We need to put our best foot forward. And I'm not part of that best foot forward." Silence. That told me everything. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm. "You know what, Dad? It's fine. If I'm not good enough to sit at your Christmas dinner, then you're not good enough to ask me for favors anymore." He scoffed. "What the hell does that mean?" I smiled. "It means exactly what it sounds like." Then I hung up, and I meant it. Over the years, My family had treated me like their personal handyman. I'd fixed things at their houses, done repairs for free, helped renovate their vacation home, all because I was family. But now I wasn't good enough to sit at their table. That worked both ways. So I decided to see how long it would take for them to need something from me. Turns out, not long at all. 2 days later, my uncle called. I let it go to voicemail. Uncle Tom, hey buddy, I need a quick favor. The heater at the lake house isn't working, and we've got guests coming. Can you swing by and take a look? I smiled, then deleted the message. A few hours later, my mom texted again. Mom, Alex, can we please talk? I feel like you're taking this the wrong way. I rolled my eyes and ignored it. Then, finally, my dad sent one last message. Dad, this is ridiculous. Family helps family. You're being childish. Family helps family, right? Unless that family is inconvenient for their high-class image. I left them on read, and by the time Christmas Eve rolled around, they were panicking. I spent the day relaxing, eating good food, and watching movies while my phone kept buzzing. Cousin, hey man, I think your mom's freaking out. You sure you're not coming? Aunt, Alex, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We love you. Mom, Alex, call me. Now. I didn't. Instead, I waited, because I knew exactly what was coming next. They had ignored me, looked down on me, treated me like an outsider. But now, they needed me, and I wasn't going to lift a damn finger. Christmas Eve came and went. I ignored every call, every message. Then, the next morning, my mom sent one final text. Mom, Alex, we need to talk. It's important. I smirked, finally responding. Mio, something wrong? It didn't take long for her to reply. Mom, we need your help. Something's gone wrong with the heating system at the house. The guests are uncomfortable. Your dad thinks you might be able to fix it before brunch. I leaned back, taking my time before responding. Then I typed, oh, I'd love to help, but I wouldn't want to embarrass your refined guests with my presence. Hope you figured out. Merry Christmas. Then I turned my phone off, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't letting them use me anymore. They had made their choice. Now they had to live with it. The moment I sent that text, I knew I had finally flipped the script. For years, I had been the one bending over backward to help my family while they treated me like an afterthought. They always assumed I'd be available whenever they needed something, that I'd drop everything to fix their problems. But now I had made it clear, I wasn't their handyman anymore. I turned my phone off, made myself another cup of coffee, and went back to enjoying my Christmas morning in complete peace. No obligations, no forced conversations, no feeling like I was being tolerated rather than truly welcome. Just me, my own traditions, and the satisfaction of knowing my family was scrambling without me. A few hours later, curiosity got the best of me. I turned my phone back on, half expecting my mom to have sent another desperate message. Instead, silence. No calls. No texts. I smirked. Guess they finally got the message. I went about my day, completely unbothered. Then, that evening, I got a call from my cousin Mark. I debated whether to ignore it, but I was in a good mood and figured I'd give him a chance. I picked up. Merry Christmas, Mark. There was a long sigh on the other end. Dude, what the hell happened? I leaned back, playing dumb. What do you mean? You know what I mean, he said. The whole Christmas Eve thing. Your mom was freaking out all day. I chuckled. Yeah? What exactly was she freaking out about? Mark hesitated. Look, man, I'm not saying they were right. What they did was messed up. But you ignoring them like that? It made things worse. For who? I asked, my voice sharp. Silence. Then, finally, he sighed. For them. I smirked. So let me get this straight. They threw a massive Christmas party, invited everyone but me, then expected me to show up the second something went wrong. Mark didn't answer. I mean, that's kind of funny, don't you think? I continued. They didn't want me in their fancy little gathering, but they sure as hell wanted me to fix things when it suited them. Mark sighed. Dude, I get it. I really do. But this is just messy. I laughed. Messy? No, Mark, this is finally clear. They made their choice. They didn't want me there. And I'm just making sure they feel the consequences of that. He was quiet for a moment, then muttered, yeah, they felt it, all right. That caught my attention. Oh, what happened? He hesitated again, but I could hear the amusement creeping into his voice. Let's just say your parents' refined guests weren't too happy about the freezing cold dining room. I grinned. Oh, you don't say. Yeah, he chuckled. They had to bring out space heaters, but it wasn't enough. People started leaving early, and your mom lost it. She was trying to pretend everything was fine, but you know how she gets when things aren't perfect. I could practically see it. My mom, fake smiling through gritted teeth, trying to keep up appearances while her elite guests slowly realized they were shivering through a disaster. It was delicious. Mark exhaled, and then Dad finally snapped. I raised an eyebrow. Snapped? Oh yeah, he blew up at your mom for not just inviting you in the first place. I burst out laughing. Wait, seriously? Dead serious, Mark said. He said, and I quote, "If Alex had been here, none of this would have happened." I grinned. Oh, that was perfect. For years, my dad had been the one who constantly brushed off the way they treated me. He never directly insulted me, but he also never stood up for me when my mom and the rest of the family made me feel like an outsider. But now that he had to suffer through the consequences of their own arrogance, now suddenly he cared. I let out a slow breath. Well, Mark, that's just a damn shame, isn't it? Mark groaned. Look, dude, I know you're enjoying this, but maybe you should just... Nope. Come on, man. Nope. Mark sighed. All right. I get it. I smiled. Merry Christmas, Mark. Yeah, he muttered. Merry Christmas, you petty bastard. I laughed. And for the first time in a long time, I actually felt like it was a Merry Christmas. Because this year, I didn't give a damn about what my family thought of me. They had made their choices. And now, they had to live with them. The next morning, I got one final text. It was from my dad. Dad, Alex, we need to talk. Call me when you're ready. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I closed it, and I didn't respond. Because for once, they could wait for me. I stared at my dad's message for a long time. Alex, we need to talk. Call me when you're ready. I wasn't sure what he expected. Did he think I'd be sitting by my phone, waiting for their approval, eager to smooth things over? Did he really believe I was going to just pretend nothing had happened? Because I wasn't. For years, I had been the one overlooking things. The passive one. The one who shrugged off the comments, laughed along when they made subtle jabs about my work, and pretended I didn't notice when they treated me like I was somehow less. But this time, I was done pretending. So I put my phone down, finished my coffee, and ignored the message. 2 days passed, and I didn't hear anything. No follow-up texts, no calls. It was almost funny. When they needed me, they blew up my phone. But now that they had to be the ones waiting, silence. That told me everything I needed to know. They weren't trying to fix things because they missed me. They were trying to fix things because they realized they had screwed up, and now they didn't have their free handyman anymore. And honestly, that realization made my decision even easier. I wasn't calling my dad. I wasn't going back to the way things were. And I wasn't going to let them slide back into my life without consequences. The next week, I got a call from my uncle. Alex, he started, his voice overly cheerful. Haven't talked to you in a while. How's everything going? I almost laughed. A while? It had been, what? A whole week since he last needed something from me? I kept my voice neutral. I'm good. What's up? Well, I was wondering. He trailed off, and I knew exactly where this was going. We're having some issues with the pool heater of the house, and I know you're great with that kind of stuff. I cut him off. Oh yeah, sounds rough. You should probably call a professional. Silence. Then he let out a forced chuckle. Come on, Alex. You know how expensive those guys are. I smirked. Yeah, it's almost like skilled labor costs money. More silence. Then his voice dropped into annoyance. Look, kid, I don't know what's going on with you, but this attitude, it's not a good look. I leaned back. You mean me setting boundaries? Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem for you. He let out a frustrated sigh. So what? You're just cutting the whole family off over a stupid misunderstanding. I raised an eyebrow. Misunderstanding? Pretty sure they made it crystal clear that I didn't belong at Christmas. That's not what they meant, he snapped. I laughed. Oh, then what exactly did they mean? Silence. Because he had nothing. I shook my head. I'm done, Uncle Tom. If my own family doesn't respect me enough to treat me like an equal, then they don't deserve my time, my help, or my energy. Then, I hung up, and it felt amazing. That was the last phone call I answered from any of them. From that moment on, I was no longer their go-to guy. I wasn't available for their home repairs, their last-minute favors, their money-saving shortcuts. I was out. And guess what? They felt it. Because suddenly, every single thing they used to rely on me for, it now came with a price tag. And when they realized they couldn't use me anymore, they panicked. My mom tried the guilt trip. Mom, Alex, family is about forgiveness. You can't hold on to resentment forever. I left her on read. My dad tried demanding that I act like an adult. Dad, this behavior is childish. You're proving them right by acting like a petty brat. That one made me laugh. Proving them right? What, by finally standing up for myself? I didn't respond. Then, finally, my cousin Mark, who was one of the few sane people in the family, sent me a message. Mark, look, man, I get it. But are you really never talking to them again? That made me pause. Because honestly, I didn't know. I wasn't actively planning to cut them off forever. But at the same time, I wasn't interested in being the only one to put in the effort anymore. So I sent him a simple response. Me, if they ever actually apologize and mean it, maybe, but I'm done chasing after people who don't respect me. He just responded with a thumbs up emoji. And that was that. Months passed. And you know what? I didn't miss them. Not once. I thought I'd feel guilty or like I was losing something, but instead, I felt lighter. Like I had finally stopped carrying a weight I didn't even realize I had been dragging around for years. No more passive-aggressive comments. No more feeling like I had to prove myself to people who never took me seriously. No more being the one everyone called when they needed something, only to be ignored when I wasn't useful. I had peace, and that was worth more than any fake, forced family gathering could ever give me. Then, about 6 months later, I got one last message. From my mom. Mom, Alex, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I just want you to know I'm sorry. We were wrong, and I hate that it took losing you to realize it. I stared at the message for a long time. Did I believe her? Maybe. Did I care? Not really, because by the time she finally realized what she had lost, I had already moved on, and I wasn't looking back.